Hi, my name's Paul Grogan and welcome to episode 57 of the Gaming Rules podcast. This episode was recorded at HandyCon in the UK and I'm interviewing Caezar from Alley Cat Games about the role of being a small publisher in the UK. We talk about the games that Alley Cat Games has published so far, what it's currently publishing and its plans for the future, including some slightly off-topic conversations about rulebooks and artists and other such things. So I hope you found it useful to listen to, and on with the show. So we're here at HandyCon, it's Friday night, 7 o'clock, we've got a packed room, there is dozens of people here watching us. Say hello, dozens of people. Yeah, you see, it's quiet because they don't have microphones. It's not that there's nobody here listening to us, honestly. So, Caezar, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You're here at HandyCon with me. We've both got, we've got a demo area in the main room.
Yeah.
I've got my games that I'm demoing, you're demoing your games.
Yeah.
But Alley Cat Games, you are the boss of Alley Cat Games.
Supposedly, yes.
Which is a UK publisher. When did you start?
Yeah. It depends where you begin.
Okay. Yeah, it's like when I get asked when did Gaming Rules start, and it actually started while I still had, a full-time job elsewhere. So
yeah, it's just, exactly the same with me. So I was a scientist, and my wife and I were on holiday, and we were actually playing a prototype of my best friend's brother's game.
Right.
Who actually went on to design Subterra.
Okay. Yeah.
And we thought, well, we like this game, but there isn't a game about science, like science lab and stuff like that. And that's when Lab Wars came about, and that's how Alley Cat Games started. Okay. And then officially, I guess it's when Lab Wars' Kickstarter started, which was June 2016, something like that. So I guess that's the birth of Alley Cat Games.
Okay. And you were still doing the scientist stuff on the side at the same time?
Yeah, so luckily the Kickstarter campaign ended like a few days before my contract ended at Cambridge. So
okay.
That was good timing.
Right. And you're now full-time Alley Cat Games?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So Lab Wars was your first game that you published, and that was designed?
That was designed by me and my wife, actually.
Okay. And what was the decision then to decide, okay, we're going to do this on our own, rather than try to pitch your game to other publishers, which, to be fair, is what most other designers do.
I mean, I've always had a entrepreneurial or business sort of mind, and I was a salesperson. I felt like I had enough skills to go down the Kickstarter route. Right. Okay. So that's why I wanted the experience mainly to see how I could pan out doing it. Yeah. And also because I was a first-time designer, I also knew I was up against experienced designers, with the designers I work with nowadays, that and work with me, but also other publishers. They're pitching left, right, and centre. Right. So I knew I had practically no chance. Yeah. So I just wanted to make a game as good as I could, but good enough that it was a decent game.
Well, that's the thing with, if you decide to go down your own route with Kickstarter, is assuming the Kickstarter is successful, that's it. Otherwise, you are, as you say, spending months and months and months going round publishers pitching your game in the hope that somebody will pick it up. Right. Doing it yourself, there you go, that's done. But of course, there is the risk of it not working out.
That's right. I think you're right. And I've heard stories of people having designs that they would pitch for years and years, and eventually, even without much change to the game, it would get picked up.
Somebody would just right place, right time.
And I heard a story from Brett, who's now my developer, about a designer that he knows. He pitched it to a publisher, and then literally 3 hours later, they said, "We want the game." Right. So it's in between minutes to years. Yeah. So. Do you want that risk? And that's why we went down the Kickstarter route.
So after Lab Wars, what came next?
Yeah, it was just a small game that you were involved with, actually, Cauldron Master. It was designed by me and my wife. Right. And I felt like it was a much more rounded game, simply because I learnt from the first game about the good things and the bad things about game design, really. Right, okay. That's what I got you involved to do
so
the
rule book for that.
That's how we got started together.
And
after that was Dice Hospital,
which is the current one of the buzz games at Eton, I think it's fair to say, because I had a number of friends of mine going, "Oh, Dice Hospital, yeah, I've been meaning to check that out." So I know it was getting buzz, and that's been very successful on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I was really pleased with how it went. I mean, because of the artwork and the sort of unique aspect of the game, I always knew it had that unique factor that would appeal to people.
Yeah.
So we got lucky that all the things clicked.
Yes, and that's not designed by you.
That's not designed by me.
That's Mike Nudd.
Yeah.
And
Stan Kordonsky.
Okay. And did they pitch the game to you?
So that was quite interesting because at the time I was looking to expand Alley Cat Games' designs, but I didn't have any of my own.
Right.
So that's when I switched to saying, okay, well, we want a continual pipeline of games. So I started looking for games. I came across this list from the Indie Game Alliance, and Stan Kordonsky was pitching his game of, he called it Stat at the time.
Okay.
So I just emailed him and said, tell me more about it, because it kind of fit with what we wanted to do, which was sort of medical or science themed games. And we just took it from there.
Okay. And that's the current game that you've got. So the Kickstarter's finished.
Yep.
People can obviously get it later on at retail when it comes out. But when are people going to get it?
Well, we're actually just about to send off the pre-production files to the manufacturer. So after shipping and stuff like that, it will probably arrive in backers' hands in July.
Okay,
hopefully.
so we're talking middle of 2018 for when backers get it. The game's going through its, because I'm working with you on the rule book, and I can see that Mike's thinking, I might just change this one a little bit. So the rules are not 100% yet, but they are very, very close.
I mean, the mechanics are locked in. But there's a few little tweaks that we need to work towards, and that's fun as well, because then we can realise, actually, maybe that's not that clear.
Yeah. So after
process.
Dice Hospital, what's the future plans? Because you're here with, I don't know if I can say the names of them, but you've got Pocket Pharma, you've got Pocket Sub, you've got
Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, so you've got three.
Yeah, and Coral Islands, which is
four.
We've got 4 games for 2018. Right. 2 of them, admittedly, are sort of smaller games, so we're going to be running mini campaigns for those, so that we can order them at the same time from the manufacturer. Right.
That's so going to from 1 a year to 4 a year. Yeah. How do you cope with that? I mean.
So last year was technically 2 because Cauldron Master was the beginning of 2017.
Right, okay.
While Dice Hospital was towards the end.
Yeah, okay.
But now, you're right, 4. And I think the reason that's expanded so much is because I've hired Brett Gilbert, who's a prolific game designer in his own right, as my lead game developer.
Right.
So the great thing about Brett is that he brings a whole, breadth and experience of game design.
Yeah.
And development as well, and concepts and ideas about how to bring a game design forward to the final product.
Right.
So we make those decisions together.
Yeah.
And that really helps speed up the process rather than just me mulling around and trying to figure it out myself.
Okay.
But I've also hired Bez Shaharari, I think that's how you pronounce her name, and essentially she is my community manager. So she helps out with side projects that I do because I'm also a Kickstarter consultant.
Right.
And so she helps me with other campaigns. So I was the Kickstarter consultant for Phil Eklund for his first Kickstarter campaign. And but she also helps with other development things like playtesting, going through rule books, and just anything that I don't have the time to do.
Yes.
So
Alley Cat Games has grown.
Yes, that's right. So we've grown. So I think we have the capacity to do 4 games a year.
Right. Okay.
So I think it's just about modest growth.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of like doing big, massive strides and hiring too many people because it's a fickle industry.
Yeah.
Tastes change.
Yeah.
You can create a game in January and then by July it will be out of date.
Yeah.
And I think you just got to be careful. And I like to think small steps.
Right. Okay. Speaking of Bez, we have had some questions in from people beforehand, and Bez wants to know, when did you first decide or notice the shift from designer to self-publisher to publisher? This is what we touched on earlier on, when you made the decision to self-publish your game. Yeah. You're now not working on any designs yourself.
No, I am sort of, but that's sort of like a side project I'm doing with Brett. So me and Brett are going to be designing games, but not for Kickstarter. Right. That will be to pitch to other publishers, but that's sort of like a side thing. Okay. That's just come out of the blue. Right. But predominantly, the reason I said it earlier, it's the pipeline thing. Yeah. And if you have games in the pipeline, and because when you sell games, it makes revenue, and that's what keeps the company going. And if you don't have that revenue, the company collapses. Right. that was game design. Choice.
You could go away for 3 months and try and design a game, and not.
Exactly. And it could be just the game could be rubbish. Yeah. And then you've just wasted 3 months. Yeah. So that's literally it.
Right. Okay. So no plans for you personally to design any more games for Alley Cat Games?
Not for Alley Cat Games.
Right, okay.
I mean, more, if I'm going to be doing any, it would be like mass market games.
Right.
Games that will appeal to the non-hobbyist gamer. And that's more of a trial at the moment.
Yeah, okay. So do you miss designing? I mean, obviously this question came in probably before you've started working with Brett. So I guess working with Brett on these other designs means that you're scratching that itch?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you take a game design, and even from a really good designer, I mean, I'm talking to a few that are really well established now, and even they need development.
Yes.
They need the concepts to be teased out, just so that who's the game for, is the theme right for the right demographic and everything. So that is part of the game design as well.
I mean, my role as a game developer with various publishers is that depending on the designer, the role of the developer can be not very useful at all to absolutely critical to the game's success. Depends on the designer. Some designers are geniuses and brilliant, and they will do all of their development themselves, which sounds like you should never edit your own work. But some designers I work with, Vladia being one of them, by the time we get one of his prototypes, he's been through a development process himself, and what's landed there is 95 to 99% the finished game.
Yeah.
Other designers, and I'm not going to say who, they give you an idea and you go, wow, this is some crazy ideas, this is really clever, and I can see where you're going with this. But this is absolute nonsense. This takes 5 hours to play and has got 80% downtime.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Well, you wouldn't get that from too many experienced designers.
No. But you get amazing ideas and amazing concepts, but it needs the development. And on those games, the role of the developer and or the publisher is far more important. I mean, I've said this a few times to people, is that when you see a game with the game designer's name on the box, you have absolutely no idea how much that designer is actually he might have just come up with the original idea, and the game that comes out might be 30% his idea, but he'll be the one that gets the credit for the design. It's just one of those things.
It's very interesting that's the case, because you're totally right that some games, and it's not just our games, I've talked to other publishers as well, that it's literally, sometimes it's just an idea.
It's just an idea.
And then sometimes it's the whole game, and you don't need to do anything apart from commission the art. That's it.
So, right, so going on to some more questions. So Ben Osteen has asked that, he says that you've been redeveloping titles that were originally published in Taiwan and Japan, and will release new versions of these. Which ones in particular?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we've taken the license of Medical Frontiers, which had a limited release at Essen last year.
Right.
And I was pitched the idea of licensing it for a larger audience at Gen Con. By one of their agents. He's quite well known, Smooks, he's called. So essentially, we took the license for Medical Frontiers.
Right.
But we didn't really feel like it was good enough for a wider or English audience. It might have been perfect for Taiwan.
Right.
But for the English audience, it needed some refinement.
So changes to the game.
Right.
So you're not just republishing it, you're doing
It's actually a redesign. I mean, we kept the core. We kept the core game. The core mechanic is drafting and poker hands.
Right.
But what we've done is we've stripped out a lot of some of the mechanics in the game because it wasn't really necessary, and we turned it into a card game.
Right.
From a game that had lots of cardboard that we felt like was actually unnecessary, to a game that is the core essence was poker hands and drafting. And the original designer was trying to get that across, but I felt like Brett, gleaned it so that he really got the previous designers.
So is that a 5th title this year?
No, that's Pocket Pharma.
Oh, sorry, that's Pocket Pharma.
Yeah.
So it was Medical Frontiers and that's become Pocket Pharma.
That's right.
So because the game has changed, it's a rename as well.
Yeah, we've re-implemented it in a way, if that's the right phrase. But yeah, it's kept the core essence, but we've redeveloped and redesigned it. And
were they expecting you to do that when they approached you at Gen Con? Obviously they're okay with you doing it, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. But was that what they were expecting, or they were just expecting you to just, republish it?
I think they were hoping for us to republish it.
Right.
But when I said to them, we like the game, but could we make the changes? The publisher was, as long as you keep the original designer's name on the box and you put our our logo on the box. You can keep most of it and then redesign it to your wishes. And they also said, as long as you send us the game and we figure out if we like it or not.
Right, okay.
And I did, and I said, this is Brett's version.
Yeah.
What do you think of it? They came back to us 2 weeks later and said, we love it.
Right.
So please go ahead.
Is Brett's name going to be on the box as well? I was going to say, it sounds like it should be.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it's very much Brett's re-implementation of how he felt the game should have been.
Yeah.
So, I'm really grateful for that.
Okay, so that was that one. Ben also said, what is the drive behind this move? But was it them that approached you initially?
It was a bit of both, actually, because I actually emailed the publisher originally when it got onto BGG.
Right.
And I was really interested in it, but there was very limited information. I was just curious, really.
Okay.
And they said, we're only going to do a limited S&R run. And that's when I got the idea of, well, should we meet and discuss if there's any possibility for co-publishing it?
So it's because you personally had an interest in the game?
Yeah.
Because of the theme of the game?
Because of the medical theme. I mean, the thing about Alley Cat Games is, okay, fine, it's not all been scientific games. We published Cauldron Master, we're going to publish Pocket Sub. Those aren't medical games. But, part of me as a person is, I love science. I feel like it's misunderstood a little bit.
Right.
And I always wanted to make it accessible.
Right.
And Pocket Pharma is perfect for that because it's such a small game, but it kind of puts across some of the concepts of what a pharmaceutical company does and what it gets up to. And that's why I was interested.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ben also wants to know why Alley Cat Games.
That's just the silly
I'm
thing.
assuming there is a story behind it.
Not really. I mean, my wife and I are massive cat fans, and she insisted that we have cat in the title.
Right. Okay.
And she always thought that me and her are a bit of a rebel because of our past. So she was like, Alley Cat is a bit of a rebel.
Is right. Okay.
So we thought Alley Cat Games.
That's where it came from. Okay. It's nice that there's a personal story behind it.
And actually, our original logo had both our cats on the logo. Okay. But then we decided it didn't look that good anyway, so my graphic designer changed it, and now it looks much more professional.
Okay, cool. So far, what is your proudest moment as a publisher or designer?
Well, that's a good question. I'm just proud. I mean, I'm really proud of just running the business. I think running a publishing company is really precarious.
Right, yeah.
Because you live and die by your previous title. I'm just happy that it's continuing on, people are enjoying our games, and what I want to do is build on that to show that we can make good games and that we're going to be hiring the right people to make even better games in the future. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. So Adam Leamy wants to know, his questions for Alley Cat are, what do you think makes a good sales pitch or sales sheet? And what you look for when you're considering a developer design. Now, I don't know if Adam is a games designer himself or
Adam,
anything else. Right, okay.
Yeah, he's a designer.
Right, okay. So this is a very, very common question that a lot of publishers get. You get people coming up to you and pitching ideas. And I've interviewed people on my podcast over the last 3 years from both sides of the fence. As I've had designers on the show giving hints and tips to other designers about how you should approach a publisher. So what do you want and what are you looking for when somebody sits down to pitch a game to you?
I think every publisher is different, and it's really difficult to know because what one publisher wants 1 year is completely different to the next year.
The same publisher might want the year after.
I think so, yeah.
But that's in the style of game. What about a more high-level approach to when somebody's pitching you a game? Do you want to play the game? Do you just want to? Do you want to play the game for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Do you want him to just show you the components? Do you want him to? What is it you're looking for?
I don't know. It's quite difficult. I mean, the way that I set about doing it is because originally I'm a scientist. I'm quite analytical.
Right. Okay.
So what I do is I ask them to fill in quite a decent form on my website. Okay. And it's not anything small like what's the title, what's the basic mechanics. It's literally it's almost like an essay. And
it's an application form in order to be able to get...
It's almost like an application form, but there's a reason to that, which is if you're not bothered about it and you're just wanting to send it to me and you don't care, that weeds you out.
Yes. And you've got to show some commitment on your part.
Yeah, it's a little bit of commitment. And if you genuinely believe that the game is suited for my brand or whatever, then you'll go through it.
Yeah.
That's sort of like the first hurdle.
Right.
And then the second hurdle is I want to know that you've actually done the research about other similar games.
Right.
Because I want to know that you've actually thought about what's unique about your game.
Right, okay.
That's really important for me because that's part of my job, and I want to know that you've actually done part
it themselves.
of it.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
So, you can make a game about, I don't know, going to conventions and selling tickets or whatever.
Yeah.
Has anyone done that before?
Yes.
That's the first question.
Twice, in the same year.
Okay, great. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I want you to tell me that.
Yeah.
And then secondly, if someone has done that, what makes yours different to that one?
Yeah.
And then if you say, oh, mine's a real-time cooperative game while theirs is a competitive Euro, cool,
fine.
That's a good enough difference.
Okay.
And then, so basically, I just want to know that you have a commitment to finding out what's out there and making yours different and what's unique about your product.
Yeah.
And essentially, I'm basically trying to get them to say what's your unique selling point.
Right.
Because essentially, I think in my personal view, if you can't explain what your game is in one single line, that's something that's interesting and different. No one's going to buy your game.
Okay, so sell me Dice Hospital in one line.
That's a good question. It's a worker placement game where the dice are your patients.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be like it's a competitive game that takes 60 to 90 minutes or anything like that.
The hook? The hook for Dice Hospital is the dice are the patients.
Right.
And that's what's so unique about it, I think.
Okay.
And people are like, what? The dice are your patients? Yeah. So the health level is indicated by the dice face.
Yeah,
the
and
higher
people go,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
And whenever I say it to people, like, it tweaks something. And it's got to be the same when people come to me about their own game.
Yeah. So I mean, I get pitch games from with my CGE hat on, and I'm involved in other meetings like that with other people. And the unique selling point is one thing. Mm-hmm. And CGE have told me if somebody comes to you with a game and it's the best worker placement game you've ever seen, and it's the best resource management game you've ever seen, we're not interested unless it does something different.
Yeah.
Tolkien.
Yeah.
In Tolkien, you are placing your workers on the board.
Yeah.
You are gathering resources, and you are using those resources to build buildings.
Yeah.
Snore.
Exactly. But
except there's these gears, and they turn, and the longer you leave a worker, and that's it. Yeah. And that's all. If you remove the gears from Tolkien, it's just like every other. I mean, I'm not slating it because I like the game, but it is effectively just gathering resources by placing workers. Yeah. But the gears are what made them go.
But that's what makes it ingenious.
Yes.
And it's just brilliant.
Yeah.
Because the longer you leave it, the better the resources you get. But then, if you don't have your workers, you can't place them to get more resources. So that's the balance and the trade-off. Yeah. It's beautiful.
So unique selling point, definitely. I like the way you've got your form. And the other thing I would say is look into the publisher as well. Don't just go round and go, I'm meeting with publisher number 3. Yeah. Right, I'll now give them a pitch. Look into what that publisher has done.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is hard work. Because if you're going to Essen and you're pitching your game to 20 publishers and I'm saying, do your research on the publisher, that's a lot of hard work.
It is.
But you want to go to them and you want to say, right, I'm sitting down with Mayfair Games. Why do I feel my game is going to fit into their catalogue?
Correct.
And I had somebody approach me at UK Games Expo last year and say, I want to pitch my game to you. I don't know if you do party games or not. And I'm working at the CGE stand. And I said, no, we don't do party games at all. We've never done a party game
as a party game.
I was being sarcastic, right? And I was saying, no, we don't do party games at all. We've never done a party game. And I'm literally pointing, and I said, have you heard of this one, by the way? And he said, Codenames. Oh, is that you?
Oh no, it's not. Really?
So I said,
or she?
Yeah, I said, okay. I said, yeah, we do party games, but it's the fact that they had no idea we did Codenames, and I was like, terrible. Well, that's a straight away. That's put my not put my back up. It's put me in a position of, look, I really expect you to do your homework. They were just literally walking around the entire thing trying to pitch their game. They hadn't booked an appointment or anything, and they clearly didn't know who we were or what we did. So do your research on the publisher.
Yeah.
Do your research on your game and other games that might be similar to yours. Because as you say, if somebody comes up now and says, I've got a great idea for a word association game where you lay out words in a grid, and you're like, even if they had never heard of Codenames, if they've designed it themselves in their back room and come up with it, you say, yeah, sorry, it's been done.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Right, so that's Adam. Thank you very much, Adam. Gavin wants to know how Dice Hospital is coming along, but we've kind of answered that.
More or less.
Later this year.
Yeah.
Ben, so this is an interesting question. I was going to bring this up at the time and I forgot. So, you mentioned earlier on that you're a Kickstarter consultant.
Yeah.
When did that start?
It's quite interesting because we'd finished Lab Wars.
Right. Which you ran yourself.
Which I ran myself.
You ran the Kickstarter yourself.
And I came to the end of the year and I was thinking, well, Cauldron Master's coming, but it's quite a small game.
Right.
And I didn't expect it to raise that much.
Yeah.
So I actually thought to myself, well, I didn't want to go out and get a proper job.
Right. A proper job.
Because, being a publisher's really good fun. I love it.
Right.
So I wanted to continue doing it or supporting other people.
Yeah.
It just came to me, I was on holiday actually.
You're always going on holiday.
No, I'm not. I'm not always on holiday.
Well, you've mentioned holiday twice in this conversation.
Well, that was the year after.
I've not had a holiday for 4 years.
Yeah,
that's my choice.
Yeah. Well, my wife likes holidays, so
right.
I have to go, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But the Lab Wars idea came in 2015.
Yeah.
And then the consultancy idea came in 2016.
Right.
We were on holiday and we were in the States, and I met these two guys who were actually designers. Mm-hmm. And they were telling me about their woes about designing the game, doing the art, and running the Kickstarter.
Right, okay.
And they were like, we're having trouble, what do we do? And we just got chatting at the gaming store, and I said to them, I was like, just out of the blue, I was like, do you guys need help?
Right.
And they were like, oh my dear, yeah, we do need help.
Right, okay.
And so I just said to them, okay, I'll help you out. I need to be reimbursed for my help, obviously.
Yeah.
And they were like, yes, please, because we can't do the art and the game.
Right.
We need someone to help us out with the Kickstarter.
Okay.
And that's where it was born. And then after that, it just came out of just chatting to people.
So because you'd done one Kickstarter yourself, you felt confident to offer your help and advice to other people, and you needed an extra source of money at the time.
Yeah.
So it just all fit in, and suddenly you're a Kickstarter consultant.
Yeah, and from that came me talking to Phil Eklund.
Yeah.
And, Phil is probably my biggest client, let's say, because of his popularity.
Right.
And at the time, I spoke to Phil and I wanted to possibly co-publish something together or take one of his like simpler designs.
Yeah.
But then he just said to me, I've heard about Kickstarter, could you tell me more about it?
Right.
And then got chatting to him and he was like, do you want to be my Kickstarter guy?
Right.
And then I was like, yeah.
Okay. Do you still do that now on the side?
So I still do on the side.
Personally, not through Alley Cat Games.
It's more me personally.
It's not like but it's hard to take the hat off sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing because, I mean, Alley Cat Games is a publisher and then running a Kickstarter is also a publisher, but you're also sort of the contractor.
Yeah.
So you have a boss.
Yeah.
If you're the publisher, you're the boss.
Yes.
I mean, I still do that. Phil unfortunately asked another, basically they're his friends to do his next Kickstarter.
Right.
But we're hoping to continue on the relationship and somehow in the future we'll probably be back together.
So you did the Kickstarter campaign for BIOS Genesis?
Yeah.
Right.
So I basically instructed his graphic designer, I got the videographer involved. I basically ran it from top to bottom.
Okay. Including the updates? Everything. Right, okay.
The messages, the comments.
Yeah.
Phil from time to time would chime in.
Yeah.
But he basically just wanted it hands off and said, just run it for me, please.
Right.
And whenever I needed his help, he would come in and answer or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. So anybody listening to this who knows what I do for a living, and we're having a podcast talking about Phil Eklund, he's probably knowing what's going through my head right now with regard, because I've been fairly public in my opinion on Phil's rulebooks.
I mean, to be fair, Phil's games are very, very, very heavy, and
they're complex.
They are complex.
Yeah,
and he readily admits that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he has what he calls living rules, and essentially he puts them online.
Yeah.
And he asks the community to basically fill in where some of the rules are, say, a bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
But the problem is with that approach, and although it's got some real merits, I think that some of the people who contribute to the rules don't have English as their first language.
Right.
And I think that's where things might get a bit confusing.
Yep.
But But to be honest, because of the game is so heavy. There's going to be some confusion. There might be some things incorrect, etc.
And in my mind, with my professional hat on, that's what should have been happening for the 2 years of development before the game gets printed. All of that work that you describe is great and collaborative documents for working, but all of that should have been gone through, I think, before it goes to print. Whereas what he does is he prints it and then everybody has a million questions afterwards. But
yeah, I totally agree. And it's an interesting approach because the thing is, the reason he calls it living rules as well is because he likes to, it's just like science. He's got a very interesting approach to science, which is that, and as a scientist I quite appreciate, is that science moves.
Yes.
And as science moves, especially with something like biogenesis, where a lot of it is theoretical science or based on experiments that haven't really been validated yet potentially.
Okay.
He likes to have some of the rules a little bit iffy, so that,
you've said a word that's made me shiver. But you'll be saying ambiguous next.
No, not ambiguous, but he wants it so that if something comes along and basically disputes what he's previously said through a game mechanic,
right, his games
you can change it.
Right, it's clever. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, and I think that's why Phil has such admiration from such a core audience.
Yeah. Well, Phil, I always say this about Phil, is I've tried a number of his games and I've hated every single one of them.
Okay.
But I have so much respect for him as a designer, because the amount of effort and detail that he goes into for his games, I'm like, this is absolutely fantastic. So huge respect for him. The games are totally not for me at all.
You've got to be a special type of person to appreciate his games for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, having spoken to him about, we discussed doing his Greenland campaign before he gave it to the Ion Games Design guys. But before that happened, he was telling me about the detail about the Inuits that lived on Greenland, and how much effort he had gone into to research specific types of tribes.
I know.
And it was fantastic.
That's one of the games that I have tried to play.
Yeah, after I heard that, I was like, wow, this guy is a real asset.
Yeah.
To the game design and publishing community.
I don't think there's anybody else that I know of that there might be.
No.
But yeah, so anyway, Phil Eklund, quick discussion there. Right, Chris Mack. As a UK publisher, do you find there are certain areas that are centres of excellence for board game designers and the additional people with the skills required, i.e. like Nottingham is for wargaming and miniatures?
I haven't really, I don't think so.
Don't you?
I mean,
because I'm thinking there is.
Okay, you tell me.
Cambridge.
Yes, I'm part of that community.
Isn't there a community in Cambridge?
Yeah.
Which that similar community doesn't exist in Devon, for example.
Okay, right. Maybe I've been spoiled because I'm part of it.
Because you're part of it. So who's part of that community?
Well, this is how I met Brett. Matt Dunstan.
Yeah.
Dave, I forget his surname. He did the Sherlock Holmes type games.
Yeah.
There's also Anthony. He's starting to get his games published. But yeah,
there's a few people in that area, and if they meet up regularly
Alan
and everything
Paul,
else,
Charlie Paul,
I think they're over there now. They didn't used to be.
Yeah.
But they're there as well. So there's this group that's in that area.
Yes.
And they're all going to feed off each other, and
it's fantastic. And I'm really blessed that I live really close by, and that's how I started as well. Going to those playtest nights, getting ideas. They're brilliant. Yes, Cambridge. For me as well, I think London is just a good area because there's so many publishers and designers there as well.
Yeah.
And ITB started up there, and
and they're organising these events, which are a bit far for me to get to, but they're monthly.
Yeah.
And I mean, Chris sort of mentioned Nottingham for wargaming.
Yeah.
And miniatures, which presumably is because of Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Because that's where they're based.
Yeah.
But then aren't there now other wargaming and miniatures creators in the Nottingham area? Probably people who used to work for Games Workshop.
I think so, there was a group that split and created their own, but I forget their name.
I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you find yourself sometimes competing with those people to secure art workers?
Competing with who?
I guess competing with these other centres of excellence. Like you might go to a particular artist and he says, "Oh, sorry, I'm busy. I'm working for Games Workshop's new game," or something like that. But not just art. People like proofreaders, graphic designers, and people like that.
Yeah.
Do you find it difficult sometimes to find the right people because they're all busy working for somebody else?
That's a really big question, because that's part of my job is obviously, is someone going to buy our games, and how do I make the game marketable enough or interesting enough to buy it? And part of it is the art. And I can spend literally, I mean, for Dice Hospital, I think I spent 2 months trying to find the right artist. Every night I'd go to bed scrolling through ArtStation, just looking for artists. I just couldn't find it.
Okay.
And eventually I got Sabrina. There are way more artists than there are publishers. So there are plenty of artists that you can choose from.
But it's finding the right one
for you. Finding the right one, exactly. Okay. But the ones that are usually in demand are the ones that are usually the ones that sell the games on artwork alone.
Right.
So for instance, Clemens Franz, you can never, basically he doesn't even reply to you. Right. Some I've spoken to, I won't mention them, they won't deal with Kickstarter only publishers.
Okay.
Which is a bizarre choice, but fair enough.
For an artist, yeah.
For an artist, yeah. I don't know why.
Unless they're worried about not getting paid, but if they get paid in advance, it shouldn't.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Those artists that I spoke to, they weren't worried about, because they knew my company is a decent company. They weren't worried about that. It was more about the ethics of Kickstarter and how it was potentially ruining the industry. That's what I heard, but it's quite I've heard it now about 2 or 3 times. But maybe they just don't want to work with me. That's fair.
Okay,
enough. And that's a different question. There's a weird way to go around it. There's other ways to say it. But yeah, finding the right artist is hard, and it's more about finding the one that suits your game.
Right.
But yeah, there are board game artists that are very, very popular, and for instance, Ian O'Toole. Yeah. I emailed him 6 months ago and asked him if he wanted to do the art for Chocolate Factory, for instance, and he said although he'd love to do it, he was just too busy. Mm-hmm. So he was booked out for like 12 months. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can find an artist that hasn't done any board game art before, and they're sort of like a diamond in the rough.
Right.
And hopefully I found the guy for Chocolate Factory, because Sabrina, who did Dice Hospital, she had done previous board game art. Right. And that's usually the way I would suggest to publishers, if they're listening, or smaller ones or designers, is basically find a board game artist first who you really like, and then email them and see if they're free. Right,
and if they're not free, go onto ArtStation and find somebody. I mean, I'm obviously, with my work with CGE, the artist that we used last year for Pulsar 2849 is a guy who's he's new to us. We've never worked with him before, and he's not done any other board gaming art before. And we're doing another game this year, and I got a message through from one of my contacts over at CGE and said, do you know such and such person? I'm like, no, why? He said, he's doing the art for us for such and such a game, and he lives in Devon. I was like,
no way.
Oh, right, okay, well, and they were putting together this this sort of thing for him as they were having to write up this big thing about, here's what we want to tell you how the game is about, to give you an idea of it, so you can get. I said, just send him round. Just send him round my house. I'll play I'll play it with him. And they went, no, it's all right. We got it sorted. Okay. I think he's like the other side of Devon, or something. He's like 2 hours away.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. Because I'm at the sort of top end of it. Okay. But yeah, it's and he's not done one before. I don't know how they found him, but as you say, there are more artists out there.
There's loads of artists.
It's just finding the right one for you.
A lot of them are fantastic. Yeah. And many of them will be very suitable for board game art. Yeah. At the same time, there are lots of artists which are not suitable for board games at all, and that's why you have to be careful when you pick your artist. Yeah. Okay. Because us hobbyists, board gamers, we're quite particular about what we like about art. Yeah. And some art may be fantastic, but it just doesn't work.
Well, a good example, Ethnos, which is being played right outside this room right now. I love John Howe artwork. He's one of the 2 artists who did all of the Lord of the Rings stuff, and I grew up reading Lord of the Rings. I love his artwork, and I love his art style and everything else. He did the artwork on the cards for Ethnos, and I don't think it fits at all. Really? And lots of other people have said the same thing. Okay. So I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying I'm not alone in thinking that style of artwork on those cards for that game just doesn't seem to fit at all well. But I love his art style. Yeah. So it's I totally get what you're saying.
That's the bit about getting it right, and sometimes the communication between the publisher and the artist can get a little bit mismatched. Mm-hmm. And what the artist thinks you want them to do is actually different to how you actually want them to do it.
Yeah, because they're artists, they're creative people.
Yeah.
Their brains work in different ways, and sometimes they go, "Oh, I thought you said you wanted it to have 6 legs," or whatever. So anyway, so we've been talking about art quite a bit.
Yes.
That is the end of the questions that we had in. So the future of Alley Cat Games is 4 games this year,
which is Pocket Sub, which is a very small but light, is very quick, abstract game of nautical warfare, basically.
2-player?
It's 2 to 4 players.
2 to 4 players,
and it comes with cute submarine meeples.
Submarine meeples.
Yeah.
And that's designed by?
That's designed by the same group of people who did Dead Man's Stubballoons, actually.
Right, okay.
So they're called Geek Fever Games, and they're like a conglomerate or group of designers that work together. There's 4 of them.
Right.
So one of them designed Pocket Sub, but they all play tested and
right. They're all part
together.
of it.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got Pocket Pharma, which is the rebrand of well, not just a rebrand, but a redesign, re-implementation of Medical Frontiers.
That's mainly just a card game.
Yeah.
But I actually really, really like it. So if people like Fungi or Morels, it's relatively old now.
Okay.
But if you like that, you'll like Pocket Pharma to replace it, basically. Right. That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
And then Chocolate Factory is a medium weight Euro game.
Right, which is Brett
and Matt Dunstan.
Yeah.
Typical duo.
Yeah.
And then in autumn we have Coral Islands, which is actually, funnily enough, a 2-in-1 dice stacking game.
Okay.
So we've got 2 games in one box.
Right, okay.
But using a similar mechanic of dice stacking, but one is more a strategic game,
yeah,
and the other one is more of a light casual game.
Okay.
But they both use dice stacking.
Right, okay.
And the interesting story with that is that one of the designers isn't with us anymore.
Right.
And his designing buddies in San Francisco approached me at Gen Con and said, would you be interested in this game? Originally it was a medical game.
Okay, here we go again.
Which is why I was interested in it. It didn't fit the theme when I eventually played it.
Right.
But me and Brett were so impressed by it, we just said, we'll take it as it is.
Right.
We didn't change anything to it.
Okay.
But because of the amount of dice that was required in the game, I got in touch with the guy who did Coral, which is also a dice stacking game, and I just thought, well, let's put the 2 together.
Okay.
So we're offering this 2-in-1 experience. So you can pick to play a light casual game with dice stacking or a more strategic dice stacking game,
Right, excellent. So we'll wrap the interview up there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
For joining me. I've enjoyed chatting with you. If anybody's got any other questions, then please post them in the comments on the YouTube. I'll give you a shout when we get them in.
Yeah, thank
you. And so there you go. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Paul.
So, a thank you to Caezar for giving up his time at HandyCon to talk to me about the role of Alley Cat Games and what their plans are. I hope you've enjoyed listening to the episode, and I'll be returning to more podcasts in future. As always, thanks very much to the sponsors of the show, GamesLaw, the UK's largest specialist games retailer at gameslaw.com, to Jason Shaw at audionautics.com for the music used in this podcast, and to all my Patreon supporters who make this podcast possible. Gaming Rules is a member of Punchboard Media, where we all bring something to the table, and a proud supporter of the Board Game Trading and Chat Facebook group. Until next time, take care and thanks for listening.